Avi Meyers here, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine. I want to thank my entire technical crew, Sonny Hersh, and thank you for joining us. Check out our website, ntnm.org. And I want to thank Marty, my barber, who offered to cut my hair today, but unfortunately it didn't happen. When you see me wearing a hat, bad hair day, that's just the way it is. But thanks a lot, Marty. It's Marty Levinson. I do appreciate it very much. My next guest is somebody who's actually on TV twice a week, every week in Chicago, whether she realizes it or not, for 1.1 seconds. Because in the beginning of my show, which I haven't changed in about 6 or 7 years, I show all these scenes from the past. It shows you're not watching my show. But anyway, I have a picture of her at Indian Boundary Park, you know, over by the animal cages, where I'm interviewing her.
That's appropriate.
Okay. And that's on the beginning of the show every week, about 26 seconds into the show, by the way, something like that. And I am talking about somebody who is who over the years, is a major activist within the neighborhood, somebody who is very instrumental, by the way, in being part of a group that built Indian Boundary Park way back when, a former president of the advisory council there, somebody who's involved in a number of neighborhood activities on many levels, and also the wife of one of my most frequent guests and the person who was directly responsible as the culprit for help get the idea to start the show. I will never forgive him. That's Michael Moses. We're talking about Susan Moses. Susan, how are you?
Hi, Avi.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks for having me as a guest.
First of all, it's my pleasure. And you know what? You're always involved in different you know, you may not be publicizing them, but you know, you've been involved in the past, not just Indian Boundary, so many other things in the neighborhood.
Well, I have to say that being a volunteer has been like the highlight of my life and my passion and my love. I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I've kind of strayed away from it, and I was taking a little break because I've been doing volunteer work probably since I was 16 or 17 years old in some way, shape, or form.
Well, plus you were raising 3 kids. And that kind of counts too.
But that never was a reason not to volunteer. In
Okay.
fact, when I had my Girl Scout troop for a number of years at Hilitora, when my daughter was a child growing up there in grade school, other parents would tell me they couldn't help volunteer because they had kids at home, and I would be holding like one of my babies at the same time. Okay, that's not a reason. And it's real unfortunate that a lot of people don't volunteer in their communities because I think that's what that helps keep it a good community, a strong community. And we have a great place to live. And you know, one of the goals at Indian Boundary was always to be involved and, you know, make sure that it stays a nice park and a nice place to live. And since I live right across the street from the park, I live near the tennis courts at Indian Boundary, it was always important, and it was always a good place for my kids to play, and it's still a nice place to take walks. And I just feel really proud of some of the work and accomplishment that I and some of the neighborhood people and friends, I've developed friendships from Indian Boundary, contributed to the neighborhood.
Well, besides for building the playground, which was a subject of a national show by Bill Meyers, who even though showing that, go ahead.
About volunteerism.
Yeah, no, which I thought was terrific, and then asking, though, by the same token, if there aren't people on the south side, it should just be given whatever, whatever. We won't talk about it more, but you know what? There was things like Prairie Days and the skits and showing what life was like in the 1800s in this area. I also learned that lawns like yours are natural lawns, and lawns like mine that are grass are the real weeds in the neighborhood.
Those aren't native. They're not indigenous to Illinois. It's funny. I was just talking about that today with a colleague who's a gardener, and I was telling him that one of the reasons why I got interested in native plants in the first place was because of Lady Bird Johnson, President Johnson's wife, and she has the Lady Bird Wildflower Center in Austin, Texas, outside of Austin, and I've been to it a couple of times. And her thinking, if you remember, since we're old here, we can both remember this, but back in the 60s with the Beautify America.
The Highway Beautification Program, I remember. That took off all the Burma shave signs and all these other things.
Right, and as a result of that, she developed this interest in native plants. And she believes strongly, like, for instance, bluebells grow native in Texas. She doesn't think that you should take something that's native to Texas and try to grow it in Illinois. So you would take like the beautiful native plants we have in Illinois that were part of the beautiful prairie that, you know, all the pioneers went across this great, you know, grassland and woodland of Illinois, and there are all these beautiful plants. She believes that, you know, we should conserve resources and plant native. And at Indian Boundary, we started that way before that became a popular phase. But if you go to places like Millennium Park right now in Chicago, that was all there's a huge native plant garden in that park. A lot of the plantings around the city are native plants because you don't have to water. You don't have to water that much when you have native.
I mean, they're used to growing up here. That's
right.
Interesting. I didn't think about the watering side. I will say this, that last night we were filming on National Night Out, and we were with the commander on Sonny's block on Campbell, near Granville. And there were a number of native to the area gardens there, as opposed to the grass gardens with the kind of things that, I mean, there was like several. It wasn't just one or two. There were a bunch of them.
Right, and so you don't have to, where we hear about, people having water bans and all those things, in different, well, not so much in the city, we haven't had that, but the suburbs, if you planted native, you wouldn't have to water that much. And, grass isn't native. That's not a native
grass
plant
isn't native
at all.
And by the way, probably neither are the plum tomatoes. The Roma tomatoes, I don't think they're native to Italy maybe, but I am growing them down here.
Right, but you have to water. You have to water. So.
You definitely have to water. In terms of, what's your next step? Are you going to go back into the volunteer stuff? Are you looking for a cause?
Well, I was going to say Indian Boundary, the advisory council was kind of going through a transition phase.
You used to have a major active
right,
council
we used to. And it seems like, it's harder and harder to get people to step forward and volunteer. And it's really important to do that.
People are watching TV.
Right. Or, talking on their cell phones or,
which is only okay if they're watching us on
TV. Right. And we enjoy, my family and I, we enjoy just walking around our neighborhood in West Ridge, looking at all the, gardens, and we use the parks, and use Warren Park and go around the track. And if you any night this summer just walk around the track, you'll see plenty of people walking around.
I haven't been around Warren. I'll have to try that out. So listen, make some trouble in the neighborhood. We need some exciting stuff on TV here. We cover the neighborhood, and hey, when you were making trouble and doing these things over at Indian Boundary, Prairie Days and all that, that was great stuff. That was great TV.
And our lagoon renovation, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Getting that accomplished.
It was a real education, not to mention also fighting for the zoo over there.
Which, the downtown zoo's been in the news a lot lately, so...
yeah, by the way, it really gives me some justification on how awful those Lincoln Park Zoo people are.
I don't know if I'm going to say that, Avi,
well,
but...
I'm saying that.
But it did bring up some reminder stories in my head about some of the issues we had around closure of the zoo, and that continues, I'm sure, to this day to be an issue that we need to concern ourselves about.
No question about it. At this point, we're running out of time, so I want to thank you very much, Susan Moses. We hope you'll grace us on the show soon, and please make some trouble in the neighborhood. We're looking to cover some stuff.
Thanks, Avi.
Thanks so much for
Bye.
being here.